This is the 217 Recovery Podcast with Corey Winfield.
Yeah, it's hard right now. It's tough. It sucks. You want to crawl in a hole and die. But this could be the best thing that's ever happened to you.
Justin Burke.
And we actually take better care of her than our plants.
Oh, you're talking about Susan. You're back on that?
Yeah.
And Mitchell O'Brien.
I watered all of the plants. All of them.
It is the 18th of March, 2024. My name's Corey Winfield, and this is the 217 Recovery Podcast. Justin Burke in the North Studio. How are you?
Fabulous.
Mitch isn't here. Yeah. Mitch is coming, though. That's why I did the whole Mitchell O'Brien thing. But the special guest, though, is, and not that you're not special, Justin. I'm glad that you're here today. But a very special guest joining us on the phone is Patrick Jones. Patrick, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing amazing. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation with you.
Yes, and we talked last week. We'll just make it fair to everybody listening. And they did a podcast yesterday and was talking to Marnie about it. And you sent me a message because you have a website. And first of all, you're a person in recovery, right? You identify like that?
You know, I don't. Oh. I actually identify myself as a free man.
Yeah. There we go. Which is a different take on it, really, but it's
Had to interrupt right away, right? It's a different take to it, yeah.
Well, thanks for calling in. No, just joking. No, but that's a different way to think about it. But others could call. I mean, other people can call you whatever they want to call you. You know, that's their business. But
yeah.
But you changed your life.
Yeah. And recovery was part of that journey. I will say, absolutely part of it. That's what I wanted. Was to recover. Like that was my only mindset was there, right? So that is an absolute part of the process for anyone out there that's looking to recover. That is the first step.
So you were just sitting on the couch, just lost your job as a paper boy. Like what happened? What made you decide, all right, I got to change? And I think there was some medical stuff with you as well, but we'll get into whatever you want to. But what made you decide, okay, I need to change some things?
Yeah, that's a good question. So just for context purposes, for anyone that's listening, for 15 years, I battled with multiple addictions. There wasn't just one that spiraled. It was multiple that spiraled at a time. So when I stopped one, I would go to another one. The main core was food. I was a food addict. I used food to numb myself. Whenever I didn't want to feel something, whether it was my kids, whether it's with stress at work, I immediately went to the only thing that I knew that would comfort me, which was food, multiple times a day, 3 to 5 times a day. And I found a way to relieve that through bulimia, actually, so that I didn't have to feel the guilt anymore. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, like I don't have a problem anymore because I feel good. So I reset myself by doing that. But to answer your question, there was a 15-year battle, really from 2000 to 2015. And it was a battle of my mind. It was my mind that was telling me that you're a crappy dad, you're not good enough. But I really, what was going on was that I'm not enough. Like there was this driving narrative that I'm bad, I'm not good, I'm not enough. And that context, that mind narrative played every day that kept me in this self-sabotage behavior. And it wasn't until 2015, after I was thrown in treatment centers, and we talked about this a little bit, but I was thrown in multiple different labels and identities that I said, I am this, psychiatric disorders, right? All these things that in my gut, I knew I wasn't. In my heart, I wasn't. I wasn't born this way, but like I couldn't figure out a way out. And so it wasn't until 2015 that I was diagnosed legally blind. And I was working, still coaching. I've been coaching 20 years, all different types of coaching and training with people in different levels. And I was coaching at the time. I was working as a sports trainer and as a health coach. And I could no longer see. Over 6 months, my eyes deteriorated, even with corrected contacts and also with glasses. I no longer could see, to the point where there was a moment I was in denial that there was a problem with my eyes. And I remember I was driving home one night, and I remember I saw the crosswalk, and I thought to myself, just speed and go past it. And all of a sudden, I went past it this one night, and And in that moment, I almost hit somebody. And at that moment, I felt like, wow, like I must have a freaking problem. I need to get some help. So I was diagnosed with this eye disease called keratoconus, couldn't see anymore, got depressed again, went on my couch, I sat there. My twins were just born a year before. And in that moment, this light bulb hit me. I woke up because I couldn't wake up. My twins woke me up. They said to me, you know, Daddy, they were just starting to talk, I remember. And I just felt this like emotional wave of like, God, I need to do something different. Like, I'm tired of this relapse recovery. One day is good, one day is bad, like 15 years of this. And in that moment, I realized that the attractive option of a life beyond this turmoil, this exhausting life I created for myself of hiding, of secrecy, of lying, of nobody knowing, living a double life. I was so tired. The pain of not wanting to be there anymore was pushing me to a desire and the attractiveness of what I truly wanted, life beyond addiction. Mm-hmm. So I started getting in touch with what I wanted. I switched my focus in that moment. I wanted a life where I felt free. I wanted a life where I had abundance in all areas of my life. I wanted to be connected to myself. I was running from myself. I wanted to be connected to my kids. I didn't know how. No one ever taught me. I wasn't trained or anything. But the problem was I couldn't deal with me and my emotions. I didn't know how I was going to free myself, but I knew I was on a journey. So that moment, I finally advocated for myself for the first time ever in my life. I was thrown into programs, hundreds of 12-step meetings, this and that. It all perpetuated the cycle and made it worse. This was the first time in 2015 I said, I'm going to find a way to heal. And I declared it. And I went on this 7-year journey of opening up new levels of healing, new levels of freedom that I had to uncover through ups and downs and figure out the path. It took me a good 7 years, though, to really go through this, this dark, pit, going to the dark to find the light. It was quite the journey for myself.
So on the timeline, and I know you said it was a 7-year journey, but on your website you talk about 7 summits of freedom. Were you tackling these one at a time each year, or was it just 7 just as a good number that just happens to show up?
Yeah. So the 7 summits of freedom are what basically over the last couple years, I have looked back at my journey of healing, breaking free, of rewriting the patterns of my mindset, how I did it, the somatic healing I did, the movement, the breath work, the biowork, how I did it, how I healed some trauma from my past. I look back at how did I actually create abundance in every part of my life? When I was in scarcity at one point, living in my car, broke, I couldn't afford anything. Like, how did I do it? And what I realized is I unlocked different levels of freedom. I accessed to create power, certainty, and action in different parts of my life, and ultimately freedom. And this is without, by the way, dependency of rehab's 12 steps or therapy, right? Mm-hmm. And along the way, I hired mentors and coaches. I went in programs. I went in transformational training programs. I went on spiritual journeys. I hired healers. I did absolutely everything you can imagine to like unlock more levels of what I was just on a journey of what's next. Okay, I'm here in my life. How do I get here? Okay, I'm here. My relationships suck. Like, my kids don't like their dad. So how do I actually, connect with my children, right? And so I had to unlock these levels of freedom. So these 7 levels of freedom, I just discovered, not in order. So what I've done was, as I've been working with men over the last few years with helping them liberate them from addiction, really a transformative journey to liberate themselves from addiction, not just from addiction, but liberate and create freedom in their body, create freedom in their mindset, create freedom in their emotions, and create emotional fluidity, create freedom inside their relationships, create freedom in every part of their life, right? And rebuilding their entire identity. And that's really, really a crucial step, especially after you come out of addiction or any kind of addictive patterns or destructive patterns you're stuck in. The question becomes, who am I? What's my purpose? What are my core values? How am I going to operate in the world? So all these things is what a man, when I work with them, they go through this process of death and rebirth to rediscover who they are, to really just step into surrendering into who they be and how they operate in the world, and how they can create that abundance. So these 7 levels are just a way for a man to peak at different levels of freedom. And so that's what they go through in a 6-month process in my programs, particularly. So rather than just taking 7 years like it took me, I could take a man through these different peaks in a very much shorter period of time.
And how do you do that for people who, because you live in Connecticut?
Yes.
So how do you do the program? Like, say my man Justin here is like, man, we want to do this. Like, sign us up. What do we do, and how is that offered to us? If we want to change our lives, like if we want to turn it around.
Good question. So here's the thing: most people are not a good fit for this, and I say this because there's a like. I go back to my story, right? It took me 15 years to finally say I'm ready, right? I had to make the choice. I'm ready to reclaim my, not just control over the addictive patterns, but my life, right? Because it's a commitment, right? It's a commitment to rise. It's a commitment that you want more out of life. And so for me, it's a very intimate process. Like, I'm working with the man directly, and I'm giving him the weapons and the tools to liberate himself, right? So I need to make sure he's ready, right? And so I personally talk to every person that I work with, every man, because he needs to be ready, because that process of rediscovering who you are is scary, right? When you let go of the ego that wants to be right, that wants to be in control, that wants to look good, and you uncover and you become vulnerable, right? When you look into your emotions and repattern them somatically that come up, like, that takes vulnerability. That takes courage. And so there's a big part of that process of working with somebody. But listen, man, like, anybody that's ready, truly ready to heal, to move past this and create abundance in all areas of life, it's possible. And I will say it can be done anywhere. Be done anywhere. It's an online program, particularly. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It can be done just as long as you're willing to do the work.
Right. So you have like Zoom meetings then?
Good question. The way that it's structured, there's an accountability piece to it. There's a piece to it where you're in a team unit, where you have team units together. You're also on weekly Zooms as well with myself, where we go through the whole 7 summits and specific content that gets stripped out to the person, and what I call missions. So each week there's a different mission that awakens a new possibility in a man. So they go through a bit of a death process and then a rebirth process every week by awakening something in himself internally to actually create a shift in that specific area. And so each week there's a mission. They go through that mission and something awakens within, and there's already a new sense of freedom that happens. So with that, with the curriculum, and also with the group team unit held accountable, and then there's also group meetings as well with the entire group.
I'm eyeing Justin right now, and I'm just looking at him like, yeah. Have you, and this is something we kind of talked about last week, have you ever had companies reach out and say, hey, man, we got a whole team of people, and maybe some of them aren't a good fit, maybe some of them will drop out, but this is something that I think would be great for us guys here at 217 Recovery, because we've made a huge change in our lives. I think Mitch has 3 years clean. You have
just over 4.
4. I got 5. It's like, okay, so we made a commitment to change our lives a little bit. But Justin went through a relationship issue a year ago, kind of gained a couple pounds. Maybe you turned to food. I don't know.
I did.
I know I turned to sugar, but like those are just little things. There's other parts of our lives that we want to be better at. There's things we want to achieve. Like I want to make a movie one day. And I'm learning how to write a script right now, and like those are the actions, and those are some of the things that I'm working on. But like, I think this would even help me even further, just be more mindful of those days where I could be reading more about script writing, or, I have an idea, like there's things I can do, but I don't. And I think this would help hold me accountable. I guess, is that a good kind of...
I love what you just said. Hold accountable. Listen, here's what I know to be true, and I think you and I talked about this. What gets it? Like, let me go back. So here's what I know to be true, is that people get stuck in three areas. They either get stuck because they don't know what they want, right, and they don't move forward, or they get stuck because they don't know where they are, right? They don't know where they are, so they can't get clear on what they want because they don't know where they are, or they know what they want, they know exactly where they are, and they are not in denial, and they were very clear, but they don't know how to get there, right? They know how to get there. And then there's a fourth. Something stops them to get there. Something gets in the way that's causing them not to actually get the result, because most people know what to do. Most people know what they want, right? But what happens is they actually don't do what they need to do to get there. They don't actually do the required actions because their commitment is like a level 2 action. Yet they have a level 10. I want to write a movie. I want to write a documentary. I want to blah, 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 right? But it's at a 2 or 3. And usually what's in the way is a belief. And we talked about this the other day, all resistance, because if you're not where you want to go, you're not doing the required actions because you're in resistance to what is, right? And all resistance is rooted in some belief. You're in some conflict with some belief, and we resist because that conflict happens internally inside of our narratives, inside of our minds. So we can reprogram that in the moment, right now, right? We can shift, change the narrative, change the story, change the action, and even learn something from that. And we have a tool that we use with our guys to actually let them at the fingertips of their palms rewire their subconscious in the moment to actually shift the direction, get a revelation, feel the feelings behind that, and step into empowerment and a new action. And that's what gets a man out of, being stuck into committed action. But that's what's required. And that's kind of my long-winded answer to your question.
That's good, though.
Yeah, it's going to hold me accountable. And do you think being a part of the team, obviously you think that because this is how you do it, but being that team kind of keeps people together and not really that I'm going to like say if, we sign up for this and hopefully we can do this, but, I'm not going to bust Justin's balls all the time, but if he walks by, if he's like, hey, I want to lose weight by this summer.
You could do that too.
And he comes in with a box of donuts. I'd be like, Justin, what are you doing, bro? Like your actions aren't matching up with what your mouth was saying, like I think that would be good.
So Corey, let me tell you something. So it's not your job to hold them accountable. In fact, my programs, it's about self-accountability. If someone's looking to be held accountable, then they're going to fail because they're looking outside, something outside of them to save them, right? There's always a story or narrative that gets in the way, like I just said, to what you want. So if for some reason you're not getting what you want, you're going to actually go inside you, Corey, or whoever it is, you'd go inside you and investigate your thinking that's causing you to actually be where you are and change the narrative. So it's a self-accountable program in a framework that's accountable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because if I just would bust his balls on the donuts, he would just eat the donuts before he came in.
You can still bust his balls, though. Yeah, you can still bust his balls.
Yeah, I think he'd be like, I'll just eat these in the car.
Well, a lot of it, from what I'm hearing, though, it's a lot like with going to a treatment center for addiction. You have to be ready. Yeah. You have to be able to hold yourself accountable and know that I'm tired. I'm tired of living life this way and want drastic change and put in the work to get it.
Yeah, because my mom, and she'll say, she bent over backwards for me. She was the only one at the end that was still there for me, and she still didn't do it for me. I had to go out and do it myself. But having that support from people, I think, is good. I think that letting other people know what your goals and desires are, the things that you want to achieve, I think that that's a good thing because I check in with my team every week, and I want to know what's your goal for next week. What do you have going on, and not just goal at work, but like your personal life, like what are you doing? What do you want to do? Because if you're not going after something, then you're just kind of stagnant. And to hear like them being held accountable, I guess, for this is what I said I was going to do last week. This is what I did or what I didn't do. A lot of times there'll be a lot of excuses and people life, I guess, in general, but I want to say myself as a person in recovery, I had tons of excuses for everything.
Me too.
And I still got them today. Well, I can't go walk for 30 minutes today because I don't know, name it, and I'll have an excuse for it, you know. Is that something that you find?
You're just being human, man. It's normal.
Yeah. but
they get in the way, right?
Yeah.
They get in the way. That's the problem. You know, and I go back to like when you say excuses, excuses are narratives. Excuses are beliefs, and they can be interrupted in a moment. You can reinvent that turn that excuse around and reinvent that narrative and change direction in a moment. Most people just don't know how to do it, right? They're never trained, or they don't have a tool, or they don't have a way to actually investigate your thinking. Because I tell people, listen, brother, like I tell people, don't believe anything that you think. If you do, you will suffer. You will suffer. We have 80,000 thoughts a day. And the moment you stay attached to a belief system or a thought process, most of the time it's because you want to justify being right about something. And if you let that go, it opens up limitless opportunity to everything that you want. It's crazy. It's crazy how true that is, but only if you discover it for yourself internally. You'll know it to be true yourself. And a lot of times it takes breakdown. Right? So breaking down your belief system is breaking down your ego, and that's freaking painful.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So accountability is a part of the process, but so is, again, I go back to being willing to submit to what you don't know, because underneath that is freedom, another level of freedom.
Yeah, I'm just thinking here, because what you said, don't believe what you tell yourself, you know, like don't believe like the thoughts that you do. And last week, this is a perfect example, Patrick. Is I had to go speak in front of this organization called the Drug Free Coalition, and I had to go and I knew most of them that were there, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to come and present, and do a little presentation and let us know what 217 recovery does." And I was like, "Okay." So I go in there and I'm like, "We have this, we do this, we do this, we do that," and I'm just naming off all the stuff we do, and all of them were like writing notes down. I'm like, "What are they doing?" And at the end of it, they're like, "Wow, we didn't know you did so much." And I'm sitting here thinking, why do I have to go to this to tell them what I do when they already know? Well, clearly they didn't. But that's I think a really good example of me telling myself, "Oh, people know what we do." No, they don't. I talked to my wife about that, and I was like, I was shocked. I thought it was a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Like, why am I going here? Like this is silly. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's just a thought that I just had there when you were talking about that, but.
No, I love what you said. And one of my mentors along my journey was Byron Katie. Byron Katie, she's amazing. She's got a great book called Loving What Is. And one of the quotes she has is, when we believe our thoughts, when we tell ourselves a story and we believe them, we suffer.
Yeah.
We do. Right? Because when we're think about your situation, right? You had thought something and you believed it, and then all of a sudden you were disappointed, or like, oh my God, I can't believe all my time, that they didn't know, right? But you went to a disempowering emotion of suffering, of disappointment, of upset, which is never an emotion that can propel us into what we want. Right. And so we're constantly attached to that, like, oh my God, right? Even if it's for a moment, or it's for a day, or depending on where you are in your recovery journey, it could be for years. And then we go to food or a drug to numb ourselves. Yeah. But it just comes back to that, what she says about when we believe our thoughts and the stories that we tell, we suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Except for when I say I'm awesome. It's tough. No, but even then, am I really that awesome at stuff? Probably not. And that was it was a wake-up call. But then, so I went from there, Patrick, to immediately thinking, well, I got to do a better job. I need to do more of this. I need to do more of that. And I guess that would be a natural reaction, right? Or a narrative.
Well, it depends. What was the narrative that was playing exactly in that moment?
Well, I'm not doing a good enough job of, I don't want to say, I guess, marketing or letting people know what we do.
Okay, so I'm not doing a good enough job with marketing and letting people know what we do. When you tell yourself that story, what emotions or what feelings come up for you?
Disappointment.
Disappointment. What
Failure.
else? Failure. Okay. And when you tell yourself that narrative and you feel that deep feelings of disappointment or failure, what does that make you want to do?
It makes me want to eat a pizza or
No, if you're really honest with yourself in this moment, like what does it make you want to do, when you experience those feelings?
like if I were to let me dig in here. I would say it makes me want to go back to the drawing board and figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, so you want to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. And what was that narrative again? I want to hear that narrative again. What is it that the tape that's playing?
That I'm not marketing our company. I'm not getting the information out of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
If I am, it's not going to the right people. And again, I knew those people. Like I see those people a lot, and I just assumed that they knew exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And they had no clue. So whether we have to make videos or again, but you can't make somebody watch a video.
Yeah. And from that particular narrative that you're playing, what is the type of person that has that narrative, like that tape that's playing, that they need to do more marketing, nobody knows about them, and you thought they did? If you were to judge the type of person, what would you say about them?
That they were clueless, that they were not self-aware.
Got it. And what type of person is self-aware and clueless?
Who's self-aware and clueless, or not self?
Yeah. What type of person is not self-aware and they're clueless? Like, how do you judge a person like that?
I would say they're
not what?
I don't know. I would say they're not. I don't know if there's I'm sure there's a word for it. I would just say that they're, I don't want to say stupid or an idiot, but
yeah,
they just don't know what's going on with their situation.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go too much down the rabbit hole here, but basically there's a deep like seated belief. And generally it's so subconscious, it's called the shadow. And the work of shadow work that I do, there's a deep seated belief that's there, that's running the show. That's why you do certain things. It's driving the actual behavior of what you do or don't do. We won't unpack that deeper. I'm not going to make you go through the process, but it's always like, is it true? Like investigating that thought, because ultimately what you're saying is that there's potentially, and I heard what I heard, there's like these feelings of disappointment, which become like guilt or shame. It always leads to guilt or shame.
Yeah.
Right. In some capacity, if there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough, or I fucked up, or I'm not whatever, right? I am not this, I'm whatever, right? And then it just kind of drives the next action. Now, the good news is that you have recovery, right? So you're more awake and aware of that. But there's always like the deeper shadow that runs the show if we're not careful, which goes to destructive habits or behaviors, or inaction, which is doing nothing, which is just as bad or worse as doing something to yourself that's destructive, right? Because then we get complacent and we get like an autopilot, and our life is working, but it's not like extraordinary. It's just working, right?
Yeah, and I think I could go to the extreme and something about shopping. I know there's people that are addicted to shopping, but I could go the other route with, I just need to spend it. Like I kind of said, I was like, I can make some videos and, I could spend a ton of money to get commercials and that kind of thing. And then again, like I kind of said it too, like you can't make somebody watch a video. You can't make somebody click on something, like that could be all for nothing. And that could be the horrible way to go. And we just spend a bunch of money we don't have to what, to get the message out. And then I didn't even get the message out. So yeah, that's interesting though. We are joined by our third guy, just real quick here, Mitchell. Mitchell, how are you today?
Oh, nice.
Speedy.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks, Patrick. No, just glad you made it in, Mitch. No, we're talking with Patrick Jones, and Patrick, your website is addictionendshere.today.
Yes.
Yeah, and Mitch, you looked at his website. I sent it to you and to Justin. What'd you think about it?
I thought I skimmed over it while I was out at my training last week, and it was interesting.
Yeah,
I liked it. Put together well.
And so Patrick has a incredible story, I would like to say, and his change in his thoughts about wanting to take control of his life, and I don't want to say being a man. Can we say being a man, Patrick, now?
But you know what? Yes, because I definitely did not feel like a man. I felt terribly weak and powerless. So yeah, that definitely can be something you can say. Yeah, absolutely.
I can relate to that too. With my story is very demasculated in my addiction, and then really had come into. It's taken 3 years, but to find a place of positive masculinity, it's been good.
Yeah, Patrick, I don't know if you remember, but I was telling all Mitch's dirty laundry to you last week. Now he's the guy that I said that had to start lifting weights or using the weight bands, like the resistance bands, while because he couldn't even get out of bed. And yeah. And
somehow I could get out of bed to get to that liquor store, but when if there's anything else, so. Yeah.
Mitch, what was your go-to? Was it? I heard liquor. Was it alcohol?
Yeah, mainly alcohol. There were some pills and prescription drugs in there every once in a while, but it was mainly alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long were you kind of struggling with it, particularly?
From start to finish, about 16 years. The worst of it was probably the last 5 to 6 years. Got really heavy then, and that's when my life really started to fall apart. The last 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious for you, like what was the catalyst in for you particularly that said, "Hey, I'm done"?
It's a little different than what I've heard a lot of other people say. I finally had somebody step into my life that wasn't sick of my shit anymore, and really said, "Here, let me walk you through this," and showed me love in a way that I hadn't ever noticed it before. And I was able to kind of be guided through it until I was able to make it my own. And that took a good year and a half probably of sobriety before I really owned it for myself. But everybody around me, everybody around me was really just kind of sick of it because they've been dealing with it since I was a teenager. And so if somebody new came into my life, was like, "Hey, we're going to figure this out no matter what," and then did and didn't leave. And that's what it really took to help me through it.
Yeah. I heard two things in there. I think are really powerful points. You're going to figure this out. The mindset of I'm going to have breakdowns. I'm going to go up, I'm going to go down, but like, no matter what, I'm going to find a way, which is such a crucial mindset for anyone struggling. Is I will find a way, and owning it is I. And I heard that you did that, and that's really powerful. The other thing I want to make another point that's you lightly said it. You said the word. It's the word that's now accepted in society. It's love.
Right.
I heard self-love. Right. And to me, even 7 years ago or even 5 years ago, the word self-love still kind of triggered me.
Right.
Because I was still in my own self-love journey, trying to figure out what does self-love mean? And I was in my head about it. I wasn't experiencing self-love. So like, of course I would not experience love because I was afraid to connect with myself, and I was afraid to connect authentically with other people without trying to be somebody else that I'm not. So I'll tell you a quick story around my first moment that I found self-love, because I think for anyone that is on that journey, I think we're all, especially in addiction, it's like we do everything not to love ourselves. We sabotage ourselves. We do everything to like fight against ourselves because we're not enough or we're broken or something's wrong with us. That's like this driving belief underneath the surface. There was a moment when I was going through my healing journey. I was about 2.5, 3 years in it, 2017, 18. This is 18. I was taking 5 prescription medications. 3 of them I was finally got off of, and I had 2 left. Mood stabilizer, and because I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I will tell you this though, like on my healing journey, I knew I was misdiagnosed because my behavior looked like bipolar disorder, but I was up for 5 hours in my substance, in my addiction. Like it looked like erratic behavior, but I just was numbing myself because I didn't want to feel, right? And I didn't want to be ridiculed from my mom and my dad or anybody, and judge me. So I went to this. But I told my doctor in 2018, the same one that gave me prescription meds for 10 years. I said, Doc, I'm done. I never want to take meds ever again. What do I need to do? Tell me what I need to do. And I was just, again, open to the possibility of it, right? That's the difference between that and 10 years ago. He said, he was an Indian doctor. He said to me, the only thing that you need to do if you want to never take meds again, the one thing you need to do is go to Vipassana meditation, 10 days silence, no talking, 120 hours of sitting and meditating 10 hours a day in silence to observe self, to observe sensation, to observe your mind and not attach to them and your emotions. I went to my first one in 2018, and it was one of the most, at the time, the most liberating, freeing experience of my life, where I found freedom and peace, but ultimately I found stillness. I stopped running from myself, stopped running, and I found peace and self-love. And I cried for hours when I just felt my heartbeat for the first time in my life. Mm-hmm. It was so profound. And that was the moment that I'm like, okay, this is cool. I want more of this. I went on a journey of, not looking for more self-love, but like, how do I sustain this now? Because I'm still dealing with battle internally, but like I wanted to sustain self-love practices. I didn't know how, but ultimately to your point, going back to your point, you said that word self-love, and I'm like, all right, that's the journey we're all on, right? Is the freedom of being ourselves and loving ourselves radically and accepting who we are, no matter what the heck happens. That's self-love, right? We're all on the journey. I'm still on the journey. I notice moments where I shift outside of me, and I have to shift back inside of me because I'm still human, right? I'm not perfect, and that's something I've accepted. You're
not walking around like Mr. Rogers, and nothing against Mr. Rogers, but you're not like, hey, I love myself. You're not like doing that 24/7. I mean, and maybe you are. I don't know. But I would assume you're not.
I will say this though. So I was in Thailand a couple months ago on another healing journey of detoxification, and there are some guys that are so how do I say, they're very spiritual, right? Where they're just calm, and they're just in this space of, you could say self-love, but they've done a lot of work, and they're in a different consciousness. There's different levels of consciousness. And so now I'm like, okay, I want to strive to be on another level of consciousness, because these guys really just are in the being of everything. They're not in the doing, they're in the being, which causes the doing, but they're living in the being in the moment. And so like, there's always another level. That's the point. So I'm even striving for like, what's next? How can I become more conscious as a man, as a father, as a partner, as a business owner, as a leader, as a guide for other people, right? Because that's what it's all about, is self-awareness and raising consciousness at the end of the day, which is a foreign concept to me 3 years ago, by the way.
I love that. I love it. And I think one of the biggest things, you said in there your journey for self-love and how you did it with the spiritual practice and the meditation and the stillness. That's how I got it too. It was a different pathway. It was a different, I found it myself and just with different people that I met over time. But in the end, I had ended up doing the exact same thing you did. And that's what worked for me.
Wow.
And the self-love part was the most uncomfortable at the beginning. My counselor had me start doing affirmations, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do this fluffy stuff. I'm supposed to be a man. Why do I have to tell myself I love myself and I'm handsome and you know, these positive things? Like, that's not how I was raised. And to break that down, and then to find meditation and that stillness and the self-awareness and everything that you mentioned, just kind of in a little bit different offshoot of the path that you mentioned. Like that is what it is. And I prescribe to a very similar mindset that you do with the consciousness and everything like that, and moving forward with it. So I really love to hear you say that. That was really awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. You know, and listen, like you've clearly had quite the journey, and you're still on the journey. And you know, it's so interesting how when we're open to a new perspective, because everything is perspective, everything is interpretation, right? And we submit to a new possibility. Like everything and anything is possible in life. Like Corey, I think you said you want to write a script. Like that's totally possible. Mm-hmm. And then when you write that script, whatever it is, guess what? It's going to open the door for something new, like something even bigger than that, right? Because what you thought was like normal becomes numb, and what becomes numb becomes your current reality. Like you're going to reach a certain peak, and then you're at another pit. I call this the peak to pit journey. You're going to reach this, like, I made it, and then you haven't, because now you're like, what's next?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? There's another peak, and you're at another pit. Doesn't mean you're depressed. It just means we're on a journey. We're evolving machines. We're evolving, growing machines. If we're not growing, you've heard this. I think Tony Robbins says it all the time. They're dying. We're on an evolutionary journey. My only purpose in life is to evolve. Like the ultimate purpose in life, and to ultimately, you know, heal, you know, things from my past, which I have, and resolve the things of why I was brought here in the first place. Mm-hmm. You know, to create a generation of my kids that don't have to go through what I did, and that's the legacy that I'm here to leave behind.
Gotta do that shadow work.
Oh, you said shadow work. Say again.
I said you got to do that shadow work. You're just explaining it, you know, healing your past and paving the way for.
Oh my God, but it's a daily, Corey. It's daily, man. It's like, listen, when I'm stuck and I'm like, okay, what do I ask myself this question, like, and just give you like a framework for anyone listening to this is really helpful. If you're ever stuck, this is how you get unstuck. It's like you identify, where am I right now? Okay, here's where I am. This is the current reality going on in this moment. This is the situation. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what's happening. This is what's true, because you can't argue truth, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second part of that is, what do I actually want? Because most people, like, they don't ask themselves this question. In this moment, what do I actually want? That's it. Where am I at? What do I actually want? And then the second part of that is, who must I be in order to do the things necessary to get what I want? Because it's not about the doing. When you think, like, especially as business owners, entrepreneurs, successful, whatever you want to call, we think it's a doing that's going to get that's going to actually get the action, get the result of what we want. It's actually a way of being. It's an embodiment. It's how am I actually showing up in this moment, in the way of being, my beingness, my embodiment, right? Am I being resistant? Am I being, arrogant? Am I being rigid? Am I being stressed? Or am I being inspired? Am I being excited? Am I being empowering? Am I being driven? Am I being results driven? Right? It's a way of being to access in order to move to the result that we want. And this is actually what's called the be, do, have model. It's a way of operating in life to get a different outcome, different result. It's very powerful.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we love the positive talk. We love the thought of change, because I don't think, like you said, the peaks and and valleys, I don't think we're ever, and this is how I feel. I don't feel like I'm ever there. And even, you know, when I complete things and we get funding and we open a recovery center, okay, that's great. And my wife it drives her nuts because she's like, you're not happy. You don't seem happy and you should be happy. And it's like, well, yeah, that's cool, but I'm on to the next thing already, you know?
Right.
And it frustrates her. And then I start thinking, well, maybe I don't know what it's like to be happy. Maybe I've never felt that emotion, you know, with numbing things for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Like if I get happy now, I cry. And it's weird. And maybe because I'm just like, I don't know how to be happy. I think I'm not sure, but it does drive my wife nuts when she's like, just be happy for a minute. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm proud of whatever we're doing, but like, I'm on to the next thing already. Like I got stuff to do, you know, and it's
yeah.
weird.
So that's, you listen, I understand exactly where you're at in that journey, right? I had thought a couple years ago that in order to be happy, I had to be successful, and I had to do things, and I had to make this happen, and I needed that to happen. And then I had this revelation a few years back in some trainings I did that happiness is a choice. Like I can choose to be happy now. And it's not even an intellectual like thought. It's actually a way of being. Like, how do I be happy and then in my body embody the type of person that's happy? It's a skill, and it's a way, it's something that can be learned. By doing embodiment practices, getting in your body and actually putting that energy and changing your state in the body that changes the action externally, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of learned
But
it.
go ahead. Yeah, no. I was just going to say for some people it's foreign because they, like me years ago, I used to operate from my head. Like, go. Next thing. I am happy, but I would tell myself that narrative. And you might be telling yourself too, I am happy, but are you actually experiencing happiness and feeling that moment to moment? Right? That's the magic question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of learned it as just a little bit different verbiage, but very similar. Is happiness is something that happens to you and that you feel, and that joyfulness is a choice. And I like the way that you explained it as well. And then you explained kind of how to achieve it as well, which was very relevant to how I've learned it. So,
yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, it's all, at the end of the day, there's nothing new. Like, this isn't like, I invented this terminology. No, this has all been around for a long time. It's now just being more accepted. And so people are more open to it because it's not woo-woo anymore, right?
Right.
All these terms and all these things. And, even 8 years ago, meditation, I don't think was really fully a thing. It was, people knew about it, the benefits, but it wasn't like in every single Instagram that you go to on live, right? You can scroll like crazy. Someone's doing it live with 100 people on it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Very different.
much more accepted now too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. Everybody's saying yeah. I figured I'd say yeah too, but
that's heavy stuff. It takes us, to process it and let whoever's listening process it, and it's all relevant to my journey. It really is, and Patrick he articulates it very well, so people can understand it and try and do it. So.
Yeah, when Patrick, when I saw your website, and this is what I told you last week when I talked to you, it was just screaming like we need to talk to this guy, and not just because I want to use your services with us, but just because like there's so many people out there that are in our same genre, in our same situations, I guess, or are very similar. Where all right, cool, we've beat or are beating addiction, we've changed our lives a little bit. Enough to we're not going to die from something stupid, hopefully. But then, we're not kind of putting those other actions, those other pieces into play. We're just going through life, some of us. And hey, you know what? For some people, that's all they want to do. Good for them. But, I try to surround myself with people who do have goals and dreams and they want to achieve more. but like you said earlier, like maybe we don't know how to get it. Maybe we don't know what's stopping us or what's preventing us. Is it because we're scared? Is it because we're, like what's the goal? And I want to surround myself with those people, and I want them to achieve what they want, and that's why I was just like, man, we really got to talk to this guy.
Yeah. I found his website very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the kind words. One of the things that I wanted to be, I said the word be. This is about 7 years ago. One of my mentors, I don't know if you guys know the name, Garrett J. White, Wake Up Warrior. Lots of exposure, right? And one of the biggest things that working with him and in a lot of his programs was I had to first stop fucking lying to start telling the truth. Right. That's step one. And when I started to do that, I started to create a sense of freedom. So a lot of, why, yes, we have success. Life is good, but it's not great. Life is great, but it's not remarkable. It's not, okay, it's remarkable, but it's not, exceptional, right? Because we end up settling for secrets and lies, and we don't tell the truth of where we actually are. And this includes feelings, by the way, Corey. Like when you're not actually allowing yourself to feel, you're not experiencing life, right? You're not experiencing the moment. You're not connected to what is. And when you're not connected to what is, we can lie and pretend. Lying means pretending, right? Pretending that everything is great, showing the world one way, but yet we're kind of just operating small and we're just beating ourselves up, and it's not fun, right? But we're doing that in silence, right? So yeah, I mean, just going back to, what you're saying, there always is a next level. And, one of the things I wanted to be, going back to that point, he said 8 years ago, I'm like, I want to be that man. It's the most powerful man in the room has nothing to hide. Nothing to hide, right? No secrets. They're willing to tell the truth, and they're living in full integrity with themselves. And because they've exposed everything to themselves or to others, and they're living in truth. They're not living in a delusional reality of hope or fear or the future or anxiety. They're living in the moment, and in that moment, they're free.
Right, and they probably don't feel the sense of shame or guilt either.
Well, that's interesting thing is, I think, is that Mitch? Is that you?
That was Justin.
No, it's Justin.
Justin. Okay. The thing is, no, they that's the thing is they do feel it. They allow themselves to feel the shame and the guilt. I have shame and guilt every week. Right? It shows up because it's natural. It's being human. The difference is I allow myself to feel it. It only takes 90 seconds to feel an emotion and let it pass.
Yes.
And it is the most liberating experience of my life every time. If I allow myself, be willing to surrender my ego, thinking in my narrative that I don't need to cry, I don't need to release the emotion because it still shows up, submit and just put on some music and allow myself to pass that emotion and not stuff it and get it stored in the body, and just let it pass. It is freeing. It's healing.
This is so good.
Feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, feeling is healing. Feeling is healing.
Yes.
And I still get caught up sometimes, and the guys I work with, like not to feel, because I'm a driven. I'm an entrepreneur. I love helping men. I'm on a mission to empower men and awaken them from this destructive prison of addiction. But I have to stop and just ground myself. Be like, what am I feeling right now? Oh, shoot. What am I experiencing? What are my emotions? Can I just sit with that in that space and be?
That's something they do early on too in treatment. When at least when I was in treatment, they gave us this whole, it was like a page just filled with feelings. And some of them I didn't even know what they meant. I was like, I have no idea what that means. That's not me. Right. But it opened my eyes to that. And they would go around the room. This one guy, his name was Steven, he was really good. And he was like, I want you to, pick one of those and tell me, what you're feeling. And some people would be like, they would just make up words. And he's like, that's not even a feeling, that's, no, pick a word and tell me why you're feeling that way, just to get you in tune with, if we were all sitting right now and just said, how are we feeling, and I wanted you to check in, I would say, I feel energized.
I'd say fabulous.
Justice will say fabulous.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Excited.
Mitch should say excited, but those are feelings. And,
Totally.
early
Yeah.
on, it's tough for us to sit there and think, how am I feeling right now? And I try to do it every once in a great while, but there's, you might be familiar with gratitude lists, and that's something that kind of grounds me when I'm feeling some kind of way or overwhelmed or whatever it is. I can look back to, where I was 5 years ago, and I just can go down the whole list of things I'm grateful for now. And I feel bad for my wife because I don't think I appreciate her enough. I don't show it. I would just, again, kind of like going back to that presentation I did last week where I just assumed everybody in the room knew what we were doing and knew what we were up to. I just assume that my wife knows I love her. I think I need to do a better job, and we could all probably do a better job of that. Just showing our loved ones that we really do love them. If I would pick the phone up and call my mom every weekend just to tell her I love her and to get a report on the whole family and who's doing the dirt or whatever. If I have to listen to that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But that would at least show her that I care and I'm listening, and there's the saying I love you and then the showing that I love you, but yeah, I could do a better job of those things for sure.
Me as well.
Yeah, I mean, you brought a lot up there in what you just shared, from feelings to showing, what you say. I mean, there's so much there. But one thing that you just said that stood out, and I can relate to it, is when I was thrown in to different treatment centers, even outpatient, all that stuff, I too got this card that said like these emotions on it. And here's the problem that I discovered. I was so like mentally checked out. And I was so much attached to still in my addiction that you can't just teach me emotions if I'm that far gone, if I'm in the dark, right? Correct. And they were teaching it from an intellectual place. I never learned it from an embodiment place. So like now it's like really when you think about feelings, it's like, okay, what am I feeling in this moment? What am I experiencing? And then where am I experiencing it on my body? So then you can get deeper in the somatic and actually getting in touch with where do you feel it in your body. And that way you become more connected to what is, and not from a head place, but you actually feel it on the body. And that's what came up when you brought that up, is because I never had them go deeper on that note. It was just kind of that card, or they say the feelings, and well, that's a word. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's like a word on paper.
Yeah.
Well, and Patrick, you brought something else up, and I really enjoyed that you did before Corey shared just a moment ago, was how you feel it and how it only takes 90 seconds typically for a feeling to come and go. And that's something that I share in the mutual aid groups that I do here at the recovery center. And a lot of people, I'll start talking about shadow work and healing the past and things like this. And the big question I get is, how do you do that? And there's a step you take after you learn how to properly feel your feelings in the present, and you have to realize that you didn't feel your feelings in the past. So every time you suppress something back then, you left a little anchor in that energy, and it is just holding its place back then. So what you do once you have the ability to do it in the present is go back, replay that situation out in your head, ask yourself what you were feeling, what did you repress, and just fully feel it again. Kind of like you said, you can play some music, you can feel it. And if you can do that without creating a story about it, is how it was told when I learned this, then you will be able to release that energy from your past and heal that stuff that you have back there. And it's kind of like how you were saying, doing it in the present. You're just doing it for the past. It's healing, and then you don't have that anchor holding you back anymore. So I really, really like that you brought that up, because that's something I actively share with people, and it's
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's worked for me, so it really has.
I love what you just shared. I mean, there's so much on that we could talk about, but specifically that you brought up feeling those feelings and going to the past to find them. I know for me, 8 years ago, that would have been foreign to me. When I say that is like, I would intellect, how do I do it? How do I do it? How do I do it? So, I think for anyone that's listening, to kind of make it more relevant, right? Because it's like, I could tell you all the incredible experiences that you can do to heal your past and all these things, and you can do this and do that. The simplest thing to do is, I know for me, this is what I would have needed, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, which is a check-in. And this is what I do for guys in my program too, if they need it, depending on where they're at in their journey, is have your calendar on your phone out, or a reminder on your phone, and have a 12 o'clock check-in. And by the way, this is for anybody, including myself. It's just a check-in, a feelings check-in. It goes off at 12. You're in your day, and it just goes off. And in the message, it says, how are you feeling? How am I feeling? Excuse me. How am I feeling? And then the second question attached to that is, where am I feeling it in my body? And then the third question is, what do I want to feel? This is where you have the power to choose a different feeling. And then the fourth question is, what must I embody now in order to feel that? Right? And you do that at 12 noon, and you do it again at 7 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock at night, wherever you get kind of in your limitation, or you get in your day and you're on autopilot. I used to do this for quite a long time, and now it becomes so second nature. I can do it in a moment's notice, where I can do it every 5 minutes. I can do it every hour. I can do it because I'm aware. It's all becoming conscious and aware, rather than defaulting to reaction of the timer going off. Or 6 days later, when you're like, life is going crazy, and you're like, okay, I need to pause, stop. Where am I right now? So it's just an intentional way to pause and check in with you, right?
I like
that's more relevant for anyone listening. That how do I do it?
I really like how that works and how it brings you into the moment, because there's also the belief where the moment is all you truly have, and a lot of people get caught up on what the future is going to be like, or things that have happened in the past. So when you do that and you purposefully make yourself feel or decide what you're going to feel or what you want to feel in the moment, it brings you into your body right there and just kind of pulls it all together, and you can leave that future or past anxiety out of that situation, and that's healing too, and that's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. One more piece on that. This is something I did a training called Master's Training with a company out in California about 1.5 years ago. And, as a man, working with people, I like I said, I think on the phone to you, I'm still on a journey, right? I'm still in my own growth of learning more about me and growing as a man, to be better. And there was this moment inside the training where it was about experiencing your experience and then communicating your experience to another person. So in order, this is interesting, to actually anchor in the subconscious mind and the deeper experience of what you're currently experiencing, when you communicate to somebody else what you're experiencing, it actually gets you more present in that experience, right? And then the moment that you notice that you're not present, you are actually present. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
When you notice you're not present, you actually just got present.
And I like how you have to word it. You have to say it to somebody else, and it's almost multidimensional at that point. So you're speaking it out into existence, and then if you write it down and you think it, and then you tell it to somebody else too, you do it in all these different ways, and you just become so much more self-aware in each dimension of that communication, and it just brings you even into it even deeper. And the deeper you can get into it, the deeper you can heal. And I love it.
That's it.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's so good, so good.
Good stuff for sure.
It's a great conversation. We could go for a long time on this stuff.
But Patrick, though, I do want to thank you, though. Mitchell, he has his own podcast, and normally they're like 3.5 hours long. So Mitchell seriously would talk to you for another 3.5 hours, but we know that you have a trip you're getting ready for. You're going to Austin, and I do appreciate your time. Yeah. Addiction Ends Here. .today is your website, and we'll put a link to your website in the description of this podcast as well. But is there anything else you want to get out there or plug or say?
I would say, all on Instagram, or if you want to get on Instagram, whatever it is, check out my Instagram. It's also Addiction Ends Here. I put out a lot of content on there as well. But the thing I would say is this. I think this last piece to end with is recovery is possible, but what we all deeply want is to be free, right? Free in our minds, free in all areas of life. And freedom is not just possible, it's available. But freedom is a choice. It's a choice moment to moment that we must make. It's a choice that we make to be free in this moment. And I'm telling you that if I was in such a dark place for so many years of my life, so many years, and I said this to you on the phone, if you just wanted 1% more, the 1% more, meaning of you wanting the attractive option of a life beyond it, is possible. So what I mean by that is 51% has to want it more than the 49. That 1%, as long as every day you focus on the 1% of wanting that freedom, wanting life beyond it, wanting to move past it, you will do it. But it takes that 1%.
Yeah, again, I was telling that to my wife on the podcast yesterday, and I totally screwed it up. So I was like, no, he was saying this. And she's like looking at me, and I'm like, no, for real. I was like, I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Yeah.
But no, that's great. And I like that just because it's not, oh, now it's 180%. No, it's just 1%.
No.
Like
everyone's like 100% all in. You just need 1%. Some days it'll go to 48, like 39, but then some days it'll be at 65%. You just need the 1% because it's about mile steps moving forward. One step again, one step backwards, one step forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's just part of the journey. It's for human.
Good stuff, Patrick. I appreciate you talking with me, Justin, and Mitch today. I hope you have a good trip.
Absolutely.
And stay in touch for sure, man, because we're very interested, and hopefully we can talk about that coming up in the future.
Yes, I'm going to be in touch for sure with you. I look forward to it. And thank you for having me on the podcast. It was a pleasure connecting with all you guys, and I look forward to talking again.
Thanks for listening to the 217 Recovery Podcast. We hope you come back for our next episode.